Hello, I'm Maria Hall Brown, and this is LA Currents. It's incredibly important to be counted, literally counted. And here to tell us all about Census 2020 is the director of the LA Census, Maria de la Luz Garcia. So nice to have you here.
Thank you for having me here, Maria. It's a pleasure.
Given that everyone's life has changed in such a short period of time, I imagine how you were going to conduct the census here in Los Angeles has obviously changed.
Absolutely. We had a plan to do door-to-door canvassing and encourage people to respond to the census and make our case in person. Since the pandemic hit, we obviously have had to change strategies, and now we're relying on a remote phone bank operation where volunteers make phone calls from the comfort of their own home and convince people over the phone to respond to the census. But we're also relying a whole lot more on social media and trying to get the message out that people should respond to the census.
How do you feel COVID-19 is going to affect the census numbers?
I think we're all trying to grapple with the pandemic, right? On a very basic level. We're just trying to get by, make sure that we continue to have shelter over our heads, feed our families, and continue operating as normal as we can. That's the challenge that we have, is trying to rise through the noise and kind of wave to people like, hey, this is still important despite, what's going on in the world today.
Honestly, what does the census do?
Everything is related to the census. It really is the building blocks of democracy. The federal government uses census numbers to determine how funding is allocated to states, to counties, onto cities, based on the actual count that they have for the people living in those areas. And this includes programs in education, like our National School Lunch Program. It includes for housing programs like Section 8. It includes Medicare. And so there's a whole array of programs that without an accurate census count, the city would not receive the funding that it needs to service or meet the demand of its residents.
There are some fears and misconceptions about the census that I am sure many people have, just not based in fact. And how do you conquer those fears, and what are they?
Well, the way to conquer any fear is to get educated and knowledgeable about what the situation really is. They will never ask you for your citizenship or immigration status, and they will never ask you for a social security number. So when you respond to the census, you're not really providing them with too much detailed information about your family's status. You're just simply telling them how many people live in your household and then what their age is and their relationship to you, along with some other demographic characteristics.
Sadly, scams exist. And I mean, we see that, there's warnings go out if the IRS will never call you on the phone. I mean, there's all things like that. Mm-hmm. So how can people be discreet and understand the difference between an honest-to-goodness inquiry from the census and a potential scam that they need to avoid?
Well, here's the basic things that you need to know to make sure that your information is kept safe, and that if you do speak with a census taker, you know that you can trust you're really talking to one. So one is, the Census Bureau will never ask you for credit card information, for your social security number. They will never ask you to make donations to any organization, including political parties. They will never ask you, solicit you via email or any other form of communication other than mail, U.S. mail. So if you get a text message, if you get an email, those messages are likely not coming directly from the Census Bureau. They may be coming from another organization. Now, it could be a legitimate outreach effort, like in the city of Los Angeles. We're trying to remind everybody to respond to the census. So it could be an organization trying to do good, but it could also be someone who's trying to scam you for information. So the bottom line is to think about, don't provide anybody with your credit card information. Don't provide your social security number. And if you do get a knock on your door from somebody who claims to be a census taker, you can always verify their information by calling the Census Bureau or looking up that individual's name online, and the Census Bureau has a staff directory. So just by typing in their first and last name, you'll be able to verify that it is indeed them. And all census takers who come to a person's door will have an ID badge with the Census Bureau logo and a badge and tablet that will allow them to enumerate everyone in the household.
You know, you made me think of something just now. You have a phone bank of volunteers, but there were also people that were going to be employed by the census. Did Los Angeles employ people too, part-time for this period of time?
So the Census Bureau is actually responsible for conducting the count, and so they are the agency that hires the tens of thousands of enumerators across the country. Here in Los Angeles, their plan was to hire thousands of people to knock on doors, and their plan remains in place. Those people are now going to begin working as of August 11th, later this year, to do that in-person enumeration of households that haven't yet responded to the census by that time. So those jobs are still available, and my understanding is that the Census Bureau is still hiring. So for anybody who's interested in getting a job, especially during this time, the Census Bureau is one of those agencies that has plenty of opportunities available for people who are seeking seasonal or part-time jobs.
Will this census, do you think, help with funding for relief programs that took place during COVID?
When we talk about, let's say, emergency response services, the amount of funding the city receives for emergency response services is directly based on a formula that includes census counts. So again, we're talking about the building blocks of democracy. And so this is why it's so important that people respond, because without that accurate count, we won't be able to get reap the benefits.
I was surprised to learn that 10 years ago, when this went down, we missed a seat in Congress by, what was it?
13,000 people.
That's
in the state of
like
California.
A drop of Los Angeles. I mean, that's doesn't seem to be possible.
Half of the size of one of our neighborhoods in
Yeah.
Los Angeles City, and this is the first time that the state of California had missed a chance to add a member to its congressional delegation since California became a state in 1850. As the population of California grows, it's important that we see that reflected in the census counts, because that's the only way that we'll get equitable representation in Washington, D.C., and make sure that our elected officials are representing our concerns.
I don't mean to be disparaging, but it's kind of well known. Los Angeles is notoriously hard to count. There have to be reasons. Why is LA so difficult to count? What is it about LA that sets it apart?
Los Angeles, you're right. Los Angeles is the hardest to count city and the hardest to count county in the entire country.
For heaven's sake.
We are in literally ground zero of what it is to get people to be counted. And I think it really is because of Los Angeles' geographic and demographic diversity. The Census Bureau has, through years of experience, identified hard-to-count populations as people who belong to racial and ethnic minorities, immigrants, people who don't speak English very well, renters, people who live at or below the poverty level, children 0 to 5, college students, seniors, people experiencing homelessness. Now, out of all of those categories, guess what? Los Angeles has among the largest populations, right? So it's no surprise that we have a hard time reaching people where they live. We have a hard time communicating to people who may speak a language other than English as their primary language. So for all of those reasons, the Census Bureau has identified Los Angeles as the hardest to count city in the country.
So what do you do to help?
We do things like this.
Because this is your responsibility. Congratulations.
It's really easy to respond to the census. Whether you received an invitation in the mail or not, you can still respond to the census by going to my2020census.gov. You can also respond by phone at 844-330-2020. If you don't want a census taker to knock on your door, respond to the census before August 11th.
It's called Project Roomkey, and the goal is to provide secure hotel rooms for at-risk people who are also experiencing homelessness during the coronavirus pandemic. Heidi Marston is the Interim Executive Director of the Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority, and she joins us now to shed some light on how it's working. Welcome to our program.
Thank you.
Your agency, which is also known as LASA, is running the program here in the Los Angeles area. Tell us a little bit about your agency.
LASA is a joint powers authority between the city and the county, and we are the entity that is charged with our county's response to homelessness. So prior to COVID and even post-COVID, looking at what does our long-term recovery need to look like.
What's the idea behind Project Roomkey?
Project Roomkey is an initiative that was started by Governor Newsom, and the idea is to partner with hotels and motels across the state who might have vacancies in a time like this where there's many safe-at-home orders and businesses are closing down, to use those hotels as shelter for our populations of folks who are experiencing homelessness and need a place to shelter so that they don't contract coronavirus.
Now, how exactly would this program help slow the spread of coronavirus?
We know that our individuals who experience homelessness are among the most vulnerable populations that we have, and the safest thing we can do to stop the spread of coronavirus is to be inside, self-isolate, and limit our exposure to others. If you're experiencing homelessness, you don't necessarily have the opportunity to do that. So providing this shelter that are individual rooms for folks makes sure that they're inside, that they're not coming into contact with other individuals. So part of what we do is deliver 3 meals a day to people's doors to make sure that they don't have any reason to come out and get food. And we do as much as we can in terms of interaction on site at the hotel.
Now, how did you get the word out to the hotel and motel owners?
LA County partnered with the state to engage one-on-one with these hotel and motel owners to encourage them to participate, explaining what the program is and why it's beneficial for everybody involved. Travel is down, tourism is down, and a lot of the hotels we've partnered with had actually closed their doors and said we can't stay functioning right now. So this has not only given them an opportunity to open their doors, but it's given the housekeeping staff opportunities, it's given their concierge staff opportunities to come back to work. In a couple cases even, we've partnered with their kitchens to get their chefs back to work, and the chefs are providing food to the people who are staying at the hotel. So it really is a win-win for them to have that continued revenue, and it's a guarantee on their hotel that their rooms are going to be filled. So in that sense, it makes good business sense.
Now let's talk about funding. So how is all of this funded?
It's a variety of funding. The biggest chunk of it, though, comes from FEMA, who's going to reimburse up to 75% of the costs of the hotels, the leases, and the operations. The state has also provided emergency funding to the city, to the county, and to LASA for COVID-19. So all of the funding that we've received from the state for that purpose is also being dedicated to Project Roomkey, and we're funding the services up front.
And who is eligible?
So we are targeting folks based on the CDC guidance of what is vulnerable, meaning you're either over the age of 65 or you have a chronic underlying medical condition where if you were to contract COVID-19, you would likely become hospitalized and potentially pass away. So it's not only an effort to keep folks safe from contracting it, but also a method to prevent inflow to our hospitals so that we can maintain capacity in our hospital system by protecting this population and keeping them isolated.
And how are people referred to Project Roomkey?
One way is through our outreach teams who are out doing work with these folks every day. So we're identifying people who not only are eligible, but who want to go inside. So there's a mechanism for our outreach workers to refer. We also have a very large network of nonprofit service providers who have the capability to refer through our system as well, who are working with folks coming into their shelters or their access centers across the county.
Once they have been approved to go into one of these hotels, walk us through step by step what happens to that individual.
They are transported there through our outreach teams, maybe through a Lyft or an Uber, and they arrive on site, and the first thing we do is help them get all of their things together. We do a medical screening, so we take their temperature. We have nursing staff that's checking for symptoms. We want to make sure everybody coming in is healthy as they're coming in and not exhibiting symptoms. And then they start working with our case management teams and our providers providers. So we help them get situated in their room. We give them the mask and the appropriate personal protective equipment to make sure they can stay safe, go through the rules, and really enroll them in the hotel like you would check in at any hotel. It's the same process with the exception of having that added medical component for everyone's safety.
Now, what about people who are part of a family that is homeless?
So we actually have a lot of folks who were staying together outside in a tent, or who are a couple or a family, and we can move them in as a unit. As long as one of the two are eligible or one member of the family is eligible, we put them all in. We can treat these folks with the respect and the dignity that they deserve, and make a dent in homelessness in Los Angeles County. Project Roomkey has a wealth of services. The first thing is the support staff on site that are nonprofit homeless service providers who really have experience working with this population, and they know what needs to be done to make sure that people are getting what they need. We do tell our guests that they are not allowed to have visitors because, again, this is only for people who need to shelter. So security helps us to monitor that. In addition to this, though, we've really thought creatively about how can we partner with some of our county agencies, our legal service partners, to use this moment where everybody's inside to talk with them, to see what is it going to take to get you indoors, what do you need, and how can we help. So we're working on a partnership with DMV to get IDs issued to folks in Project Roomkey. Our legal service partners are helping with record clearing and tickets that have piled up and oftentimes become a barrier for people to get indoors. And we also have our Department of Public and Social Services, making sure people are getting SSI benefits or their CalFresh benefits if they're eligible. So we want this moment for them to walk away with everything that they're eligible for to set them up for success moving forward.
Tell us some stories about people that you've met who I'm assuming are very grateful.
This is more than just a shelter. You know, we have shelter already built up across Los Angeles County, but it's in a congregate setting. So this is really the first time that we have shelter where we're not only bringing you indoors, but you have your own bathroom, you have your own TV, you have your own bed, and you don't have to worry about neighbors. And some folks are thrilled. I remember one gentleman in particular, he just couldn't believe it when he walked into his room and he found a robe hanging in the closet, and he said, I get a robe? And helping these folks see, you deserve this, and you deserve a dignified space to be. It's really, really just rewarding to see their reactions. And even if you look at these folks over time, getting a good night's sleep can't be understated, and seeing their ability and their desire to come out and engage and talk to our case managers and think about what their long-term plans are, this is helping to facilitate that because it's taking the stress of the streets off of them and providing them with that safe space.
Well, tell us your personal opinion about how it's been 3 months now? 2 months?
2 months, yeah.
What do you think of it?
First of all, I'm so proud of our system. I think we've treated homelessness as a crisis for a long time, but it's been hard to always maintain the momentum, the funding streams, the public will, the political will to keep that going. This has brought a new surge of energy to our work and really helped us to double down. And what it showed us is that we can move much faster than we ever realized that we could. To say that in 6 weeks or 7 weeks that this has been open, we have now sheltered 3,000 people. That's half of all of our interim housing inventory almost. And so we know how to do this. And what I want to see is that it demonstrates to the entities that fund us, to the policymakers that work with us, that if you resource this in the right way and you let us move forward with interventions that we know work like this, we can make a marked difference in homelessness in Los Angeles County. We just have to think really big and really bold, but it's possible.
Now, if people want to find out more information, where do they go?
They can go to lhasa.org to see more. We have all of our resources on our website. We have videos and testimonials if you want to learn more just about the program itself, lhasa.org.
Well, thank you so much. Heidi Marston, Interim Executive Director for LHSA. Thank you for everything that you do. And I know your people work really hard
They
out
do.
there.
They're amazing.
Amazing
Yes.
people.
Yeah.
Museum exhibits, parades, special events, all of that has been part of the celebration of the LGBT Heritage Month here in Los Angeles. Well, things are going to look a little different this year. I'm sure that doesn't come as any big surprise. However, there's a lot of good news. And here to tell us that good news is from the 13th District, Councilman Mitch O'Farrell. Lovely to have you here.
Thanks, Maria. Good to join you.
The Pride Parade, as we were talking about earlier, literally started here in Los Angeles 50 years ago. This is a big year for the celebration.
It's the most important year ever of any Pride celebration that we've ever had, because it's the 50-year anniversary of the very first Pride Parade anywhere in the United States, and it kicked off at the intersection of McCadden and Hollywood Boulevard in the 13th District on June 28, 1970.
Wow. And that obviously demonstrates there's a lot of history here, and I would imagine that there was a parade planned.
Oh yes, there was so many things planned. We're going to have some virtual celebrations, including a virtual parade with Christopher Street West and the organizers. Even though everything has to be done virtually and nothing in person, we want to celebrate as never before. We want to have an event every single day in the month of June.
And it's really important for your district. I mean, because of the fact that the first parade was there. But I do want to talk specifically about how you were pivoting into 7 categories of wonderful things that are going to be happening through the month of June.
All right, so let's talk about flags. So there are so many Pride flags. It's not just the rainbow flag that we all know and love and, it just brings a smile to our faces when we see. It's really dozens of flags. There are flags specific to lesbian rights and pride. Flags specific to Two-Spirit, which is Indigenous and Native American. And it just runs the gamut. So we're going to have an education about the flags all through the month of June on one specific day every week.
Okay, so then everybody can find, as you put it, their tribe.
Their tribe, that's right. And I'm of Native American heritage, so finding one's tribe has special meaning for me personally. And it really is something that's important. We're social animals, we're social beings. So it's important in life, no matter if you're in the LGBT community or not, to find your tribe, who your people are and who you feel comfortable and what you have most in common with others. It's our family, it's our tribe.
Nice sharing. All right, films. There's always a film component. We were talking about, there would always be these great movies that were available for people to attend and to learn about and things like that. We are all watching a lot of films, but I imagine that you have a very specific repertoire of films that you're going to offer.
So I'm a film buff. For the last 6 summers, I've had a film festival at Echo Park Lake, and we do screenings with different themes. So now, in the month of June, we'll do LGBT-oriented fun films like Cabaret or Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, Tu Wong Fu, Thanks for Everything, Julie Newmar. I mean, fun LGBT-spirited films that people can enjoy and hopefully expose to a whole new generation of folks who haven't yet appreciated these great movies.
These are really, really poignant stories. Okay, I don't know what this means. Fighting Proud.
All right. So part of the culture of gay pride, LGBT pride, is honoring those who fought for visibility and civil rights and equality. So we have a long history of honoring those who fight. And so we want to honor the pioneers. We want to honor the pioneering spirit, and we want to make sure that it is relevant to today's young LGBT community. The Black Cat protests, when the police decided to raid the bar and arrest people for kissing at the stroke of midnight, they fought back. And protests were organized for the first time ever. About 600 people put it all on the line. They came out, they allowed themselves to be photographed, they were in the newspaper, many of them lost their jobs, many of them were disowned by their families, but they put themselves on the line for the benefit of others, and that's part of our legacy as well. Once upon a time, not too long ago, it wasn't okay to even be your authentic self to your own family or your employer. So we've made a lot of successes since then, but that could all be taken away if we don't remain visible and tell the stories. So that's what Fighting Proud is all about.
All right, photos.
We have an incredible library in Los Angeles. It's the One Archives, and they're housed near USC, and it is really they have the largest collection of LGBT history in photos and films and artifacts, and all of it's very curated. we've been partnering with them for years and years. All these iconic historic photos, and so photos help tell the story. So we're going to share photos of the last 50 years of Pride in Los Angeles through One Archives.
There's always a lot of festivities. I mean, as I mentioned, there are museum exhibits used to have at the Hollywood Museum, et cetera, and that can't actually be there this year, but there are festivities.
Yes. So the Reel to Reel is a wonderful yearly exhibit with our friends at the Hollywood Museum. So we'll have a virtual exhibit, and my friend Danelle Dadigan, who runs the museum, and her incredible staff, they're still going to do some curating. We're also going to bring in some interviews with folks remotely at the museum that she'll be part of. So that'll be another avenue of learning and appreciating our history.
And Fireside Chats, are they with you?
Fireside Chats are with me and some well-known personalities and everyday Los Angeles residents who have stories to tell. And so the theme this year is Pride and Pandemic, right? Pride to Pandemic, because my team and I were reflecting on this pandemic, and I thought it was really important for everyone to know that LGBT individuals of a certain generation, my own, have already lived through a pandemic and are living through a pandemic. So I think that we can teach people a thing or two about what it's like not to know what you might face in the future. I'm part of a generation that didn't know if we were even going to make it to age 25, much less 30 or beyond. I got to live through it all. The vast majority of people in my generation aren't even here today to tell the story. So that responsibility falls on my shoulders. So I encourage everyone who's interested to share stories of survival through AIDS into the COVID-19 pandemic. There's a link, and there's something that we can share that might just help people.
There was such an outpouring of support in the gay community to support each other during this pandemic of AIDS that ostracized and isolated to a certain degree and terrified everyone.
In the early AIDS era, entire gay communities were heavily marginalized. Attempted laws to be passed to make them quarantine away from everyone else. And it was a combination of angry gay activist males and fierce lesbians who elevated the fight against discrimination, hatred, and fear that has led really to so many of the advances that we experience today. If you follow the CDC guidelines, you can protect yourself and you can get through this and you can help others get through it as well. Allow it to help you appreciate life a little more and trust that we will get through this.
This is not what you had hoped or expected, but this might actually reach people that may or may not have had the access, availability, or time to participate in some of those live events.
What was going to be a really sort of, grand, epic celebration because of the 50-year anniversary has turned into a virtual celebration that more people will have access to now.
Well, if we want to celebrate through the month of June, what's the best way for people to participate?
Pay real close attention to what all these organizations are doing, and you can do that through my office, by the way, cd13.org, cd13.org, and we will connect you. Look for my social media announcements, and it's at Mitch O'Farrell or Mitch O'Farrell. Real easy. And we invite everyone to celebrate. Although we celebrate our unique differences in this community, we celebrate humanity in general. We're all part of the human race. So let's enjoy this together.
Well, it's been a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you so much. Congratulations on making all these great plans, despite the fact that you wanted a big, loud, joyous parade. We'll do it next year. How's that sound?
Sounds good, Maria. Thank you.
All right.